What's up, y'all? It's y'all boy Mike here, man. I should jumped off the porch with dirty club bathroom, man. Man, turn me up. Move out. Move out. Come on, that rap, man. Come on, man. We all the way here. Come on, fella. Come home. Come in your leg up. Don't let me shine. Come on. Come on. Not too late. Come home. And I'm hard. Come home. I'm not shy. Come on. We let the
That's him! Turn me up, don't turn me down! That's him! That's him! That's him, man! Open the gate, what they doing?
This is Michael Wayne Moore, an 18-year-old content creator and aspiring rapper from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, whose entire world would come crashing down in a single, catastrophic night of decisions that would transform him from an internet sensation with millions of followers into a suspect facing potentially 50 years behind bars for each count stacked against him.
Get off my live right now and go click that link for y'all some bread, man. Come on, man. If y'all want y'all some bread, y'all better go tap in. How y'all think I got out? I clicked that link, nigga.
But before we dive into the chaos of that fateful night, let me take you back to who Michael Moore really was before this moment, because the contrast between his public persona and the charges he now faces is nothing short of shocking. Before that trigger pull that would forever alter multiple lives, Michael Moore was known as Life with Michael, a viral content creator who had built an empire of over 1.1 million YouTube subscribers and amassed nearly 100 million views across his comedy skits, elaborate pranks, rap music videos, and Grand Theft Auto gaming streams. His Instagram following rose to approximately 1.8 million followers, positioning him as one of Baton Rouge's brightest young stars in the digital content creation space. Moore began his journey to internet stardom as a member of the Bad Kids, an influencer trio from Baton Rouge known for their playful antics and youthful energy, before ultimately making the bold decision to branch out and pursue solo success under his Life with Michael brand. His content was specifically tailored for younger audiences, featuring what he himself would later describe in court as funny content aimed at kids, including school visits and speaking engagements, where he connected with his fan base in meaningful, personal ways. But on that particular Saturday evening in late March of 2024, Baton Rouge Police Department officers were conducting routine patrols when they spotted what they deemed to be a suspicious vehicle near Gus Young Park and Roselawn Cemetery. Inside that vehicle sat Moore, who was just 18 years old at the time, alongside two other men whose presence would set into motion a sequence of events that nobody in that car could have possibly predicted. When the officers approached to investigate, the driver made a split-second decision that would prove catastrophic. Instead of stopping, complying, and simply answering whatever questions the police might have had, the driver chose to evade, sparking a vehicle chase that would wind through the streets of Baton Rouge before coming to an abrupt halt in the 4200 block of Odell Street. What happened next at approximately 11:30 in the evening would transform a routine traffic stop into a nightmare scenario for everyone involved. All three occupants of the vehicle exited and immediately fled on foot, scattering in different directions as officers gave chase through residential neighborhoods where families were settling in for the night. One of Moore's companions, a 29-year-old man named Eric Brown, was quickly detained and issued a misdemeanor summons for resisting an officer before being released. His night ended with relatively minor consequences compared to what was about to unfold for Moore. The third suspect managed to completely evade capture and remains unidentified to this very day, disappearing into the Baton Rouge night. Meanwhile, Moore continued his desperate flight from law enforcement, his feet pounding pavement as adrenaline coursed through his veins and panic surely flooded his mind. Officers tracked him to a yard on North 43rd Street where Moore made what would prove to be the most consequential decision of his young life. He jumped a fence, turned back toward his pursuers, and fired a single shot aimed directly at the head of a uniformed police officer who was simply doing his job, attempting to apprehend a fleeing suspect. That bullet, fired in a moment of desperation or fear or calculation, we may never truly know which, missed its intended target by what could have been mere inches. But that bullet continued its trajectory, penetrating the walls of a nearby residence and striking a man who was simply resting in his own bedroom. The victim was struck in both legs, suffering injuries that were thankfully classified as non-life-threatening, though the psychological trauma of being shot while lying in your own bed cannot possibly be measured in medical terms alone. Even more shocking is the fact that 5 other people were inside that home at the exact moment that the bullet came crashing through their walls. After squeezing that trigger and watching the muzzle flash illuminate the darkness, Moore made the decision to discard his firearm and continue his desperate flight, as if throwing away the weapon could somehow erase what had just happened. But there would be no escape for the young content creator who had built his career on entertaining millions. A Baton Rouge Police Department canine unit tracked Moore down and subdued him, resulting in minor bite injuries that would pale in comparison to the legal wounds he was about to suffer. The arrest itself was completed without further incident. However, social media footage that circulated in the aftermath of this incident paints a different, more emotionally complex picture of what Moore was experiencing in the hours and days following his apprehension. Video clips that spread across Instagram and various gossip platforms show Moore appearing visibly distressed, with what appears to be tears in his eyes, speaking to the camera from what looks like the interior of a vehicle, displaying a level of emotional vulnerability and apparent regret that stands in contrast to the violent actions he had allegedly committed just hours earlier. He was booked into East Baton Rouge Parish Prison, facing 1 count of illegal use of weapons or dangerous instrumentality, a felony charge that alone carries serious implications. But that was merely the beginning of his legal battles. The charges that truly threatened to obliterate any hope Moore might have had for a normal future were the 7 separate counts of attempted first-degree murder that prosecutors piled onto his case. The attempted murder charge specifically targeting the police officer carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 20 years if convicted, with absolutely no possibility of parole, probation, or suspension of that sentence, meaning that if a jury were to find him guilty on that count alone, Moore would be guaranteed to serve at least 20 years in a Louisiana state prison before even being considered for release. Each of the 7 attempted murder counts carries a potential maximum sentence of up to 50 years, meaning that if a prosecutor decided to pursue consecutive sentencing rather than concurrent sentencing, Moore could theoretically be facing 350 years in prison. The attempted murder charges stem from 1 count for the risk posed to the pursuing officer, and 6 additional counts for each of the 6 people who were inside that residence when Moore's bullet came crashing through their walls, including the 1 victim who was actually struck and the 5 others who were merely endangered by the wildly fired shot. On March 25, 2024, just 2 days after the shooting that upended his life, Moore made his first appearance before District Judge Will Jordan in a virtual court hearing that would reveal the surreal disconnect between his public persona and his current predicament. During this hearing, Judge Jordan set Moore's bail at $175,000. The judge also took the step of appointing public defenders to represent Moore, acknowledging either that Moore lacked the financial resources to hire private counsel or that the complexity and severity of the charges warranted experienced criminal defense attorneys who specialize in serious felony cases. But perhaps most significantly, Judge Jordan issued a protective order that explicitly barred Moore from having any contact whatsoever with the police officer he allegedly shot at, the wounded man who took a bullet in his own bedroom, or any of the residents of that home where the shooting occurred, a standard legal protection designed to prevent witness intimidation. During this court appearance, Moore provided what might be the most jarring moment of tonal dissonance in this entire saga, when he described his work as creating funny content specifically designed for children, mentioning school visits and speaking engagements as if these wholesome activities could exist in the same universe as the violent charges he was now facing. In the days and weeks following Moore's arrest, social media exploded with reactions to the news that a beloved content creator with over 1 million subscribers had been charged with attempting to murder a police officer. The discourse that emerged revealed a complicated mixture of shock, disappointment, debate over whether the charges were too harsh for a teenager, and broader discussions about the intersection of youth influencer culture and real-world violence. Some users expressed disbelief that someone whose entire brand was built around making children laugh could be involved in such serious criminal activity, while others pointed to the severity of firing a weapon at a police officer as justifying the aggressive prosecutorial approach. Interestingly, unlike many high-profile cases involving police and young black men in Louisiana and across America, there were no major protests, no widespread controversies about police conduct, and no significant movement challenging the official account of what transpired that night. This absence of public outcry may stem from the straightforward nature of the allegations. Moore allegedly fired a weapon at a pursuing officer and struck an innocent bystander, leaving little room for alternative interpretations of events or claims of police misconduct. The lack of publicly released body cam footage, while raising some questions about transparency, has not sparked the intense scrutiny that accompanies more ambiguous or controversial police encounters. Moore's case must also be understood within the context of Baton Rouge's ongoing struggles with gun violence, particularly violence involving young people in the rap and hip-hop community. The city has witnessed numerous tragic incidents over recent years, including high-profile deaths of local rappers and shootings during music video productions.
Hey, but look though.
Oh, he pressure,
look,
yeah.
The rock star, yeah. Hey, but look though, man. Let's pass them up because no promotion. They act like they can stay up 5 minutes. But you know what I'm saying? We walking back to the car. He talking about make sure I don't steal the car. How you gonna make sure I don't steal the car? You gave me the man, nigga, leave your ball here.
Yes, sir.
How you gonna give me the key to the chair and you think I'm not gonna leave my nigga? Come on now.
And if he try to come try something, he gonna stop him. That's that stopper right there. He got that op stopper. The ball head stopper.
So we finna get in the car. Hey, look at that Bravo.
Oh, yeah.
Get in the car, my brother. Ride with a Glock and it hurt 13.
Why do you have me on the camera?
Y'all hear that?
That's that. I mean a V. Yeah, on my phone.
Yeah, I'll do it. Should I move it? I ain't gonna move it. He gonna be mad. Should I not move it? My brother. Okay, you guys. So what we doing right now? We'll be walking to this interview called Off the Porch. You hear me? Look though. Let me see. I text them before. They let me on scene. It's all good though. I don't got no beef. But y'all let me on scene off the porch. I don't got no smoke with y'all though. But now we doing the interview. That's all I care about. Let's get no keys and no cap.
However, Moore's case stands somewhat apart from this pattern because it directly involved law enforcement and an innocent bystander rather than emerging from gang-related conflicts or interpersonal disputes within the music scene. The question of what ultimately happened to Moore's case becomes frustratingly difficult to answer with precision as of late 2025. There are no publicly available updates indicating a trial outcome, plea agreement, or dismissal of charges. This absence of information could suggest several possible scenarios, each with different implications for Moore's future and for the pursuit of justice in this case. One possibility is that Moore reached a plea agreement with prosecutors that was not widely publicized, a common outcome in criminal cases where defendants with no prior criminal history face overwhelming evidence and the prospect of mandatory minimum sentences. Comparisons to similar cases in East Baton Rouge Parish in 2025 show patterns of prosecutorial leniency for young defendants without criminal histories, with charges sometimes being reduced from murder to manslaughter, or defendants being offered diversion programs that emphasize rehabilitation over incarceration.
Moore's status as a youth influencer without documented prior convictions may have positioned him as someone prosecutors viewed as worth giving a second chance, particularly if he demonstrated genuine remorse and if the victims were open to a resolution that didn't involve decades of imprisonment for a teenager. Another possibility is that the case remains pending in the court system, working its way through the notoriously slow Louisiana criminal justice system, where serious felony cases can take years to reach trial. The East Baton Rouge District Attorney's Office has acknowledged challenges managing high caseloads while balancing public safety concerns with rehabilitation-focused approaches for young, first-time offenders. Complex cases involving multiple victims and attempted murder charges require substantial preparation, and defense attorneys frequently file motions that can delay proceedings for months or even years. A third, less likely but still possible scenario is that charges were quietly dismissed or significantly reduced for reasons not made public, perhaps due to evidentiary issues, witness cooperation problems, or other factors that prosecutors determined made the case less viable than initially believed. What we can say with certainty is that Moore was released on bail after posting the $175,000 bond, allowing him to await whatever resolution would come while remaining free rather than languishing in East Baton Rouge Parish Prison for months or years. His subsequent social media activity, including videos where he referenced being released and encouraged followers to support various business ventures, suggests he's attempting to move forward with his life and career, despite the cloud of unresolved criminal charges hanging over his future.
Hey, go through a lot of pain up in real life behind the cameras. Got a lot of problems and I handle it like a man. All I got a drama, shit, put the money in my hand. I ain't get no howl, all above me in the start, but not the end. I'ma have them boys running from that bed. Give your ass a 10, if you don't know about that. I'm that little nigga, I'ma stay with that. Hey, remember my mama that real 100. She had a smile on her face. She got shot 17 times. My sister got shot in the back. 1 hour at the hospital, she walked off. 2 days later, you know that I would chop her down. Fuck it, nigga don't respect me, I'm a thug. Then I was to my princess. Your best bitch not to trust me. When he got like that, they be like that little nigga, he ain't clutching, he don't stay with that. But I ain't gon' show him that. No, we don't play like that. And if you gon' come around, no come with that. And my love leaking, fuck, I can't fix a hole. I say this world getting cold, feel like I'm all alone. But I'm not all alone, cause I got my people. And when I need them, they gon' come through. Save me in return. If you brought the bitch for me, you was not my friend. I told my girl don't get loud, cause I'm no fucking man. Bad bitch, you know I had to teach her, let's go. She say, Mr. Mike, I got a L.
Do you think the charges laid out against Michael are outrageous? Let me know in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.